So boys, Ludo here, and after completing all 40 specs in the game, I think this is the best video to make first. Easiest specs to reach elite, right? So I'm gonna make two lists. I'm gonna be trying to be quick about it. First list is gonna be like objective one, in general for everyone. And the second list, I'm gonna rate my own experience, how it was for me personally, right? So per usual, we're gonna rank melee, ranged healers, and tanks, in that order, so they're not mixed up. It looks nicer. And outside of that, we also have to say difficulty also depends on the strength. So in some seasons, some classes will be way harder because they are way weaker, and vice versa, right? So a very hard class, for example, like Affliction was in the War Within Season 3, can become easy in like previous season because it was so strong, right? Or, an easy class could become hard because it's so weak, right? So I'm going to be trying to rank them objectively if they were all on same power level, okay? So it's pretty much, doesn't matter which season is, right? So let's get going with the Blood DK. Blood DK is going to be hard because tanks in general are just bad in shuffle, in arena. So definitely hard. Now, it's not going to be very hard because it has some tools to actually, close the game compared to some other very hard classes, right? So across all the seasons I've played, the Blood DK was pretty decent. So that's why it's going into the hard. Now, Frost DK definitely going into easy. Can carry games hard, regardless of the season. Even the previous season and the season before, played both times, and I would say it was pretty easy both times. The damage rotation is very simple. All you need to know is how to set up the go, and you can carry the games very, very easily. Because honestly, it's also one of the best healer killers. So especially at that rating where healers are not, they can die easily. Okay, so pretty easy. Now it's not going into very easy, it's just because it's squishy, and very easy classes usually have everything almost, or they're just stompers. Unholy DK, very similar to Frost DK, definitely harder class, but it's also more meta usually than Frost. Like pretty much always, Unholy is the play. Also, Unholy does way more pad damage, and again, to elite, the damage is enough to carry you. So both of them to get to 2.3 is gonna be easy. Okay, DK is really good. Again, into killing healers as well on the Unholy. So you can definitely overwhelm the healers, you can definitely overwhelm anything. You have Silence or GCD, so many good tools. AMS, like you don't even need to use your toolkit to full to get to elite, okay? Well, for example, in Blood DK you'll have to, because it's harder, right? Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be very hard because the toolkit is just not for arenas, just not for PvP in general. Low damage, it is tanky, you're probably not gonna die, but you do no damage, plus your CC is weird, sigils, it's kind of weird. But probably the worst spec out of all in the game, so it's gonna be very hard. Now again, it could be, one season could happen where Vengeance is good, broken in PvE, so maybe it translates to PvP, but in general, every season, Vengeance is just dog shit, okay? Now, Havoc Demon Hunter is going into the very easy category. Why? Because you can just PvE your way into elite, to 2.3. Now, this is a very high skill ceiling class, but it's very low floor as well. Okay, so low floor but very high skill ceiling. So it doesn't mean this class is easy. It just, to this rating, it's gonna be easy. But to get to some high rating, you're gonna need to learn a lot more, right? So, Havoc Demon Hunter is complete noob stomper. You can just, as I said, PvE your way to elite, because it doesn't have much CC, right? It just has a stun and a fear on both very long cooldown. It has only one defensive, and pretty much all you have is damage and mobility. And why it's going into very easy compared to some other melees we will see that won't go into very easy is because it counters, like, all these melee counters, Demon Hunter counters them. So you can't escape Demon Hunter. You can pretty much, you don't even need to kite because you can't kite Demon Hunter, right? If you're ranged. So it's like a glue that pumps. Okay. Now, the Devourer. For this one, it's hard to say because last season it was broken. It was broken, and obviously it would go into very easy category because you could just stand and, you know, click 1 2 1 2 1 2. Now, with this season nerfs, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna stay this way for, you know, other seasons as well. It's not gonna be busted, like, you know, that's usually the new class privilege, right? Your first season you're gonna be broken. So now in the second season we see big nerfs to Devourer, and it's definitely not gonna go into very easy category, and you're not gonna be able to just stand, take all damage, and just, you know, hit 150k with each global. That's definitely nerfed across the board, and now you'll have to actually play tactically with Devourer. At least I think that's how it's gonna be. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's gonna be very easy, but I'm 95% certain it's gonna be easy, not very easy. Again, damage reduction very easy. Again, CC we don't have much. I forgot to say, you know, immune prison. Doesn't matter again. Longish cooldown, very short CC. You know, again, defensive is very low. So not much to this class, other than you're gonna need to know how to kite and, you know, outsmart your opponents, pretty much. Now, Boomy has so many tools, but it's also one of the easiest casters, okay? And coming into this season, it looks it's going to be very good. But then again, we can't put it in very easy category because you need to, you know, use your clones. That's hard to do. But definitely easiest druid spec. Probably the best I would recommend caster to try first. You know, a lot of stuff is instant cast, multiple schools of cast, great utility, like so many things, mobility, you know, bar skin you can press and stun. Like there's so much things that makes Boomy good. Now, last season it was not great, but it was still, I would say, easy-ish compared to some other casters that are, you know, were on the same level. So Boomy, I would say easy. Now Feral will go into the hard category. It's probably the hardest DPS spec in the game. Baseline, right? Because there's so much to think about. And even the floor is high compared to some classes, right? Compared to Demon Hunter. Like high skilling is super high, but even floor is high. If you start playing Feral like first day, and like you will see that you're gonna be way lower than on any other spec you've tried, right? If you don't believe me, just try it out. So Feral has a lot to think about. Again, multi-dotting, choosing when to multi-dot or go single target, choosing when to clone, because you're going to lose on DPS. If you get CC'd, you're going to be vulnerable. Stuff like that. Like there's a lot of decision making going into Feral and a lot of game knowledge. Okay. Now the Guardian Druid, I'm going to also say hard. Not very hard because it has great utility. Same as, you know, all Druid specs have great utility, which can make you, you know, you have more tools to carry the game. Unlike the Vengeance. Clone is probably the best CC in the game, right? So it's just better than Vengeance, and that makes it easier than Vengeance. But also having a better damage helps, right? But yeah, I would probably say it's slightly better than the Blood Decay as well. So, I was thinking about this one, and I'll put both of them at the same time, because it's hard to say which one is the hardest healer. They're both hardest healers, it just depends which one is stronger at the time, you know. The weaker one is harder one. So they're, I would say, on very, very similar level. The only difference is probably like Press Evoker is shorter range, higher APM. Rest Druid is, you know, can't burst heal like Press Evoker could, and you know, save the game like that. You would have to think ahead with HOTS and stuff like that. So definitely these two are the hardest healers. Definitely not beginner friendly. If you're starting to heal, I would definitely not recommend them as a starter, except if you like a challenge. Now, I would also like to say these two are the most fun, in my opinion, together with Resto Shaman. But I would say these two are most fun healers. So, you know, hard and fun. So, but not beginner friendly. Now, augmentation. I don't even count this as DPS spec. It's very niche, and I would put it in very hard. I would definitely say, in my opinion, I see more players reaching elite with these, anything above this, than augmentation. Augmentation is just weak damage, very weird playstyle. You have to change your playstyle around. It's a hard spec, very hard spec. Now, of course, in some seasons it might be busted, and then it's not going to be very hard. It could be just hard. But currently, in the last season and in this season, season 2, it's going to be very hard. Okay. Now for the Devastation Invoker, it's one of the easier casters. Even though, if it's weak, you're going to be having to use your toolkit to the fullest to carry the game. But when it's strong, like, you know, it's pretty simple, right? I would say it's very similar to Boomy. They both do huge damage. They both have a problem with closing the game. They both have spammable CC. They both have great mobility and very similar wall. You know, it's not the best wall, but it's similar. So I would say they're very similar. Okay, now for the BM. BM is going to be the easiest range spec, if you can even call it range, because it doesn't cost anything. It's just like a melee with range. So that's obviously going to make it very easy, obviously. Now, also, what makes it very easy is you barely have any buttons. Plus, you have the shortest burst cooldown in the game. Plus, you have also very good defenses. And you also have a very good CC. So you're packed with a lot of things. And it's very, very simple to play. Okay? So, very easy. Now, Marksman. Marksman is going into easy. It's definitely way harder than Beastmaster. But there are harder ranged classes. Okay? I would put it in easy. Because, again, it has very good CC, it has very good defensives, it has very good damage. The only hard part is, well, kiting. You're kind of static when you need to aim shot, stuff like that, right? That's the part that makes it not easy. But everything else makes it easy, right? We also have to think about stuff like that. Now, Survival Hunter again. I think all hunters are just into the easy category because their toolkit is so good. Their toolkit is so good. Survival Hunter has been simplified a lot since the War Within. Again, it doesn't have many buttons. Has full toolkit of the Hunter. Great defensives. Great CC. Great damage. Plus, it has some extra stuff on top of it. Okay, but it still can't get into very easy category because it's, you know, it's complex. It has some complexity into it. But the toolkit is so good that it makes it easy. Okay. Now Arcane Mage is definitely going into the hard, and I'm not sure, but this could be our only caster in the hard. Sorry, I need to put tanks here. Because this is the hardest caster in the game. Only one school of magic, very squishy, and if you get kicked and you don't have block, you're as good as dead. So, you know, and you're always the focus, by the way. It's hard. Like, it's hard. It's similar to augmentation in that way, but augmentation is just doing less damage. Like, if you leave Arcane Mage to recast, good luck. If you leave Arcane augmentation, you know, not a big deal. So, Fire Mage, again, I would say it's gonna go into easy category. Mage toolkit is just so good, like having Ice Block, multiple schools of cast, because Fire Mage doesn't have the same problem Arcane Mage does, because if you get fire kicked, you can still blink, you can still block, you know. Even if you don't click any of that, Cauterize is still gonna pop, right? So you have so many tools, massive visibility, barriers, so many tools, right? And the damage is good. Yes, the damage is mostly in combustion, but it also makes it, if there's another caster, you're probably not gonna be a focus. Okay, so in double range lobbies, fire is pretty easy to play, right? Plus you have spammable CC, you just good spec and you know, great toolkit, making it easy. Now Frost Mage, the easiest of the mages. We've seen it all last season. It's just oppressive into melees. It's just a hard counter to melees, and every caster is pretty much, you know, really doesn't like to play against, for example, triple melee lobby. But if you get it on Frost Mage, it's no problem. So the only weakness most casters have, like triple melee lobby, Frost Mage doesn't. Plus it has 2 ice blocks. Plus it has, so, you know, great defenses if you get kicked on. Again, Frost, you can blink, you can massive visibility, so many things. So it's just probably, you know, one of the easier casters. Now, Brewmaster. Brewmaster is going into hard category. Even though I think it's the most complex tank out of all, right? It's the most complex out of all. It's still the best damage-wise, and that's gonna make it easier because it gives you more potential to carry, right? So the most complex one, but the best damage profile. Oh, that's why it's better than the other ones, or easier. Mistweaver is well, we didn't have anything in medium, but our first medium, probably third hardest healer. But I would say in general, I would put healers mostly in medium tier. Okay, because I would say DPS is generally easier than healer. Healer requires a bit more game knowledge. You know, the floor for healers is higher than for DPS. The ceiling is the same, pretty much, right? But the floor, the starting point, is higher for the healers. Now, Windwalker is going into easy. Again, I would say one of the noob stompers as well. Very, very good into low MMR. Crazy good damage. Good CC. Now, the defensive part is weak, but they changed... they buffed defensives a lot this season for Windwalker, so it's gonna make it even better. So definitely going into easy category. Now, why it's not, for example, very easy as Hulk? Because it has big counters, like Frost Mage. You know, some, like Devastation Invoker, some matchups you can't reach targets, and then you're, you know, are just standing in the middle of the map and you're like just getting blasted. Hulk doesn't have that weakness. Again, that's why it's going into easy. Now for the Holy Paladin. Holy Paladin is usually considered the easiest healer, but I would still put it in the medium. Now, I think this is not the easiest healer, it's probably the second easiest, because it's not too complex, but it's still not easy to climb with, in my opinion. It's really not easy to climb with. Definitely going into medium. It has a lot of big cooldowns, which can save the game, but you also need to have some knowledge when to use them, because if you use them in the wrong order, you use them at the wrong time, your healing output is lower than the other healer's output. So that does require some game knowledge, right? And that's why it's a medium. Now the Prot Paladin is the only tank that's going into easy category. It has such an insane toolkit for PvP. It's just disgusting how good it is. Now, if it did damage, it would definitely go into very easy. But since it's doing no damage at the moment, it's just going into easy. Okay? Now, it does require some game knowledge when to press your cooldowns, like all the paladins. But definitely going into easy. Now, if we're talking about, like, for example, last season, start of the last season, it will definitely go very easy because it was doing so much damage. But since it's doing no damage, or barely any, it's in the easy category because of the utility. You got Bubble, Bob, Play, Valkyries, like you can summon 3 of them through the game. It's insane. So many good things. The Red Paladin is probably gonna be our first and last spec in the very easy. Now, why? Because of the utility again. It has the best toolkit in the game, and that toolkit makes it hard and easy at the same time. Okay, so this toolkit makes it easy because you can make many mistakes and live, right? Compared to some other classes which have very bad defensives. So you can have many defensives and still survive. Now, since it got buffed damage-wise, we can say it doesn't do any damage anymore. So it has good damage, it has the best toolkit in the game, it has super strong healing, self-healing, and Red Paladin is not a noob stomper, it's a noob saver. If you're playing with bad players in your team, you can carry them by saving them. No other class can do that. Okay? Now, why is it hard? Because you need to know when to use it exactly. But to elite, you don't. Like, if you play enough games on the Red Paladin, you know your damage rotation, you use your abilities just on yourself, like lay on hands, bubble, you're gonna reach elite. I've seen paladins that don't even, use their stuff on teammates up to probably 2.6. Okay? Last season and the season before. So, definitely very easy for the elite. Now the 3k plus stuff is different story. Discipline Priest as well, going into the medium category. I would definitely say harder than people think. Again, very easy to get into, but the higher you go, it's way harder. It's a healer you need to be ahead of the game. If it's not broken, of course. If it's just okay healer, you need to be ahead of the game, and that's what makes it medium hard. Not easy, right? Because you need to know when the damage is coming before it comes. Okay? Now, for the Holy Priest, in my opinion, the easiest healer, it's a different story. You don't need to know when the damage is coming. You just react to damage. For example, someone gets hit by, 2 Chaos Bolts in a row, boom, you just click your Holy Word Serenity. You heal it all back. On the Discipline Priest, you would need to big barrier, before those 2 Chaos Bolts actually hit the target, right? So that's a big difference. Plus, Holy Priest has the least buttons, and it's kind of very simple. Like, it got simplified a lot. It was already the easiest healer before it got simplified in Midnight, and they just made it easier. So, yeah, easy. Definitely recommend for anyone starting the healing. Like, just try it out. And I would also say it's fun, even though it's so simple, it's still kind of fun. So I really enjoy playing Holy Priest. Shadow Priest though. Shadow Priest is definitely going into medium. It's now the problem with Shadow Priest is damage is good. Damage is good, and it's also tanky. The only problem is it's very static. The CC is hard to pull off. You're kind of reliant on your teammates to do it, and then you follow. Okay, that's the problem with Shadow Priest. But damage-wise and tankiness, really good, and that's why it's in medium. So you don't need to actually kite that much because you're just baseline tanky, you know. Assassination Rogue is gonna go into the easy. Even though it's a rogue, it just has such a good toolkit, you know. Having silence is just so good for carrying the games. Plus, you can kind of PvE on Assassination compared to some other rogue classes. You can just kind of PvE and reach your elite goal, right? Which is not the case with other rogue specs. So Outlaw is going into the, I would say, medium. It got a little bit simplified. You can definitely... It's more quick-paced than the Assassination, but you can also kind of PvE your way into elite, but it just does way less damage, doesn't have the silence. The toolkit is just way worse, you know. Bleeds are, you know, bypassing all the stuff. You're just doing, you know, that physical damage. The cleave is way worse. Like, it's just way worse than Assassination. And that's why it's harder, right? And has worse toolkit. So definitely medium hard. I would say before it was hard, but they did simplify it a bit. So I would say medium. Now Sub Rogue is gonna go into hard. Now the last list I did put it into easy because it was so broken. But you know, that only works at the start of the expansion when HP bars are very low, versatility is very low, and the spec is busted. Now when, you know, HP bars are high, versatility is high, and Sub Rogue is not broken, it's back to hard, right? It's the only setup rogue kind of at the moment, you know, and it's pretty much one of the rare setup classes in the game left. Especially if you're talking about shuffle, guys, we need to know that your teammates will mess up your kill conditions. And kill condition for Sub Rogue is pretty much getting a full stun DR, right? Full kidney shot on the kill target. Now, if you're, for example, playing with a warrior, he might, you know, before you want a kidney shot, he might shockwave randomly. And then you can't get the kill anymore, right? So that's also, we need to think about that when you know, rating the difficulty, because you're not playing alone. So it's definitely hard spec. Now, Elemental Shaman is very complex, actually. I would say it's not easy to get into, but it's easy-ish to get into. But it's a pretty complex class. You have all those totems. You have to have very good game knowledge. When to ground, when to tremor, when to, you know, do many things. Because to get to elite as Elemental Shaman, you probably are gonna need to know those things, right? That's why it's going into medium category. Because, again, for example, you're playing Demon Hunter, like, you don't need to know a lot of stuff in the game happening. You just need to know how to do your damage. On Elemental Shaman, the damage is not gonna be enough, right? So that's where you need to understand the ratings between these categories, okay? Enhancement Shaman is gonna be easier than the Elemental Shaman, even though the complexity is still high, the same, but you won't need to be, you know, on the lookout as much as on the Elemental Shaman, because baseline you'll just do more pressure than Elemental Shaman does, which will win you the games more often, and you have scarier burst window, right? So that's the case on the Enhancer Shaman. That's why this is easy and this is not. Now, Resto Shaman is going into medium. Doesn't matter which order is, just, you know, whatever is medium, doesn't really matter the order. But I would definitely say a staple for medium tier, okay? Same thing as every other shaman, you kind of need to know when to use your totems properly. You have so many tools, like moving them around, rooting at the right time, incapping with the right with your totem, static totem. You know, how is it called? The lightning totem that moves them. I don't know anymore the names of it all, but you know what I mean, right? It has just so many tools that it can be easy. For the affliction, you know what? Let's put them all immediately to medium. That doesn't matter the order, but yeah, let's put them all to medium. So I think they're all three medium, even though Demon is probably the easiest of them. They all probably have the same weakness. If they're playing, you know, against a triple melee comp, even though in the higher rating, it's not that big of a deal. Also depends on the map. On some maps, Warlock is very easy to play. On, you know, big maps that you can port around very nicely, and there's a something to climb on. On some maps, it's just way harder. For example, Ruins of Lordarion, right? Or some small map for the lock. So very map dependent, very comp dependent, the difficulty. Okay? So Demon Lock is usually the weakest of them, and that's why it's not going into easy. So 80% of the time, Demon Lock is just bad. Okay? And that's what it makes it hard. But otherwise, it would be easy. But it's just always bad, right? It's always bad. Now, the difference between Affliction and Destrolock. Destrolock has multiple schools of cast. It has both Fire, Shadow, and Chaos. Right? While Affliction has only Shadow and, well, Dark Harvest, but, you know, that's just one spell. So that is the only problem Affliction has, even though it can do damage while kicked. While Destrolock, you know, if it gets kicked on Chaos, you're kind of in a big problem. Well, Affliction Lock still takes damage, right? So I would definitely say Affliction was in the past the hardest Warlock spec and one of the hardest specs in the game. That was in the World Within. But time, you know, things since then changed. It got a little bit simplified and it got way stronger. So definitely in the medium category right now. But again, all of them are very close. Just depends which spec is the best at the moment, you know. If the Destrolock is the strongest in this season, it's gonna be the easiest, right? If Demon Lock is, right? That's how it goes. For example, even though Affliction is not an easy spec, last season was so good that it would go into easy category, okay? So it could happen any of these classes go into easy category. Just pick the best one. Whichever is the meta one, that's gonna be the easiest one. Otherwise, they're on the same level. Now for the warrior, again, baseline, I'm gonna say it's easy. Both specs. Honestly, plays the same almost. The only difference is Arms is slightly more tactical. Fury is more APM. Okay, it's quicker gameplay. While Arms is a bit slower and more tactical, but it's just, you know, if you can play one, you can play the second one. It's very close. It's very close. Now, why it's not going to do very easy again compared to Demon Hunter is it's going to be the same thing with Winged Walker. It just suffers against certain matchups. If you're playing a triple range lobby, you're just a toy. You almost have no effect in the game if they don't make huge mistakes. If they don't make huge mistakes. If you're playing against, for example, against Post Mage, I don't know, you know, Affliction and whatever, Destrolock, you're in a huge problem. You're in a huge problem. Havoc is not. He's not gonna have any problem. Yes, you're gonna dominate in, I don't know, melee cleaves, but then again, these classes are very good in melee cleaves as well. You know? So the point is, you have weakness on Warrior, you have weakness on Windwalker. These guys have barely any weaknesses. You know? The only weakness is if they do no damage. Right? But we are talking that everything is kind of balanced here, right? Okay. So for the Protection Warrior, it's going into very hard because the damage is very bad. The CC is decent, but again, compared to these guys, it's not as good. We can say maybe it has better CC than the Blood Decay, but Blood Decay is tankier, plus does better damage. Okay? So very low damage, comparable to Vengeance Demon Hunter, maybe even worse. Actually, it was worse last season, but it had better CC. So, but still, they're both very hard to climb with. So all in all, this would be my objective tier list, you know, for anybody. Now, let me do quickly my own, how it felt to me climbing all these specs, right? So this list is going to be highly subjective, completely how it was for me. So it doesn't matter for you guys. Now, I'm going to be as quick as I can about it. So Blood Decay was hard. It took me like 3 days. Low damage, you know, hard to carry. It was just hard. Frost Decay was very easy. We're talking about 2 Elite, 2.3. Very easy. You just, you know, pretty much noob stomp everyone. Now, Unholy Decay was easy, not very easy, because of the Mistweaver bug, where he could heal on your pets, and Mistweavers were everywhere, and then you would kind of auto-lose some matchups, and that was super annoying, and, well, that's why it's not very easy. Devour was the easiest ever. I mean, you would just click 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and everything will die. So, very simple, very, you know, Havoc Demon Hunter. Again, the best melee in the game, was just super strong. Yeah, very good. Vengeance Demon Hunter, the worst spec in the game. Horrible. Took me like 500, 600 games, I can't even remember. It was pretty tough. Yeah, not fun. I want to do it again. Guardian Druid was medium. It did definitely better damage than the DK. It had great utility. It had good heals for teammates. It was definitely, you know, it felt like you can carry the game. It wasn't RNG-ish, you know. I could definitely go 6-0 easily on the Guardian Druid against worse players. Now on the Boomy, I'm gonna say it's easy, not very easy, because it kind of felt hard to close the games. Like, I was pumping. I would be sometimes doing 3 times more damage than anybody else, but I just couldn't close the game because Star Surge was so bad. Thankfully, it got buffed now. On the rest of Druid, again, I would say it was easy. It was my shortest healer, my shortest climb, but I felt like I had some luck against, you know, healers. It felt, I don't know, maybe maybe because it was by the end of the season, and that's why. So that's why it felt easy. Feral was medium. It definitely felt the hardest melee and probably the hardest DPS spec to climb with. You know, I actually had to read the talents in depth, what they actually did, so, you know, I know what to do. Otherwise, you know, yeah. The Station Walker, I would say the same thing as Boomy. Exactly the same thing. Very good damage, but it was hard to close the games without teammates, right? Pressy Walker, again, easy, because it felt like same as the Restaurant Druid. I had the most outcome to the game because of my spammable CC on the healer. So I could really annoy the enemy healer and close the game that way. Survival Hunter was very easy, just insane burst. You could one-tap anything. You have Hunter Toolkit, Trap, good defensives, amazing. So it was very easy. Same goes for the Beastmaster, even more simple. You have 3 buttons, great defensives, Trap, great, very easy. Marksman, one of my mains, so was pretty easy for me. Augmentation, I'm gonna put into hard. It was definitely the hardest non-tank support class, whatever it is. I don't want to do it again. It was kind of equal on with the blood decay. It was really, it was a rough climb. It was a rough climb. It didn't feel good. Augmentation, arcane mage. I'm gonna put into medium. I would say pretty much exactly like Feral, very close to Feral. I felt good on it though. I felt I can outplay the enemies well. So, I did feel like I have a lot of agency in the game, but like I had to outsmart the enemies, you know, to win. It wasn't just, oh, I'm just gonna do damage. Nah, you had to actually outplay them. Fire Mage felt, I would say, very easy. Yeah, it was pretty easy. Like, I instantly got to Elite. Just one-shotting stuff. Frost Mage, super easy. It was just broken. It was so broken that, you didn't really have to think about anything. You were just 1-2, 1-2, and not die. So, very easy. Brewmaster, I think it was easy actually. Yeah, Brewmaster was easy. Great damage, felt like I'm playing DPS, like a bad DPS, but a DPS nonetheless. So easy. Mistweaver felt medium. It was early in the season when I was climbing my Mistweaver, so and I didn't really understand it until the end of the climb. So then I got the elite. But yeah, it wasn't easy. It didn't feel easy. Windwalker was very easy. Don't look at the order of these. Just it is what it is. Very easy. One of my mains. Boom boom. Just one shotting everything. Very easy. Holy Paladin was medium as well. Same as Mistweaver. Just didn't click with me. Just didn't click with me. I think like these two are harder, but they just have that spammable CC that I can carry the games with. Holy Paladin doesn't. I had to hide, pillar, blah blah blah. I didn't enjoy it. Protection was easy as well. Unfortunately, when I played it, it was nerfed, so I couldn't carry with damage. I just had to kind of support my team to the victory. That's it. I had to make my DPS live for 5 minutes so we can win the game. It was easy, but it would be very easy if I would actually do some damage. Red Paladin was very easy. Great utility. It's just unkillable. Great. It's just great. It was very easy. Discipline Priest was again medium. Same thing as these two guys. I just didn't feel like I'm carrying the game. I just had to, be a pawn in the game and play perfectly to win. Yeah. For the Holy, felt easy. Because it probably had the easiest healing rotation. Like you just had to click 2 heals, and if someone is 20%, you just click big heal and you pretty much lay on hands him with Serenity. So it's not the same as these two, where I would win with CC. With Holy Priest, I would just win with healing. Plus, we also had Chastise Interfere, so that's also kind of juicy. Shadow Priest, I would say easy. It felt stronger than these two guys, but it didn't feel as good as these guys are, here to me. Yeah, the problem is, if I was the target, it would be very easy. If I was not the target, I couldn't do much. I could just, again, outdamage everyone by a lot, but still lose the game. On Destination, it was, I guess it was easy. I'm gonna put both in easy, because I just, you know, I just have to think when I play rogue. That's the problem. And then it's not very easy because I actually had to think a little bit. So we can't say it's very easy. So on the sub rogue, definitely medium. It was definitely way harder than these two because I had to think way more. I had to look at the DRs. I had to think, when is my burst? When is that? When are they using trinkets? When are they using defensives? Stuff like that. So that's why I didn't enjoy it much, because it felt like I'm on work or something. I want to think. I want to chill, enjoy the game. So that's why it's going into medium. But still, definitely easier than these things. Elemental Shaman was easy. Maybe very easy for me. No, actually, yeah, easy. Something in between very easy and easy. But yeah, you actually had to, you know, time the grounding, tremor, look out for, you know, stuff. And it wasn't actually closing the games either, like these two. So you would have to go to damp. If, again, I was not the target, same thing with the Shadow Priest, actually. I could easily lose the games. I performed best when I was the kill target. Enhancement Shaman, very easy. It was so good. Like, again, Noob Stomper felt really good. Just blasting everything. Resto Shaman was easy for me because it's kind of the same reason as Holy Priest. Like, the heals were so good. Like, I could top easily anyone in my team. And I don't know, I just feel good using totems. So it felt better than these three for me. Yeah. Affliction was very easy. It was kind of busted. So very easy. Like, it did unhealable damage, crazy damage. For the demo and the show, I'm gonna put them both into the easy. Why? Because, well, you'd be tunneled, same as Affliction, but you were not doing nearly the same amount of damage as Affliction. So, you know, they're just not meta specs in the season. That's it. That's why it's not very easy. But yeah. Oops. It's very easy. Both one of my mains, right? Warrior. Don't have to explain much. Just rolling over everybody. And protection warrior was, I'd say, hard. Not very hard as it was definitely easier to climb with than Vengeance Demon Hunter because of the CC. The CC was way better, and you could intervene, you could, you know, rally, stuff like that. So yeah, it was hard. So that's pretty much it. This is my list. This is my objective list. This is my personal list. So, you know, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, drop a like, drop a sub, and I'll see you in the next tier list, which is gonna be, well, arena tier list once the season is out. So stay tuned for that. Peace out.